Welcome once again to Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
Good morning, Mark. Paul Ogden here.
And we are coming to you today on March 31st, 2012 from Big Hat Books in Broad Ripple, Indiana. Actually, Indianapolis, Indiana. Broad Ripple section is on the north side of Indianapolis. Big Hat Books is at 6510 Cornell. Excellent selections of books. Space here for special occasions. It's an excellent local merchant. It's not a big box organization, so you can be doing business with local people and helping the local economy. We are going to discuss today, Paul?
Well, today we're going to go a little off the beaten track. Normally we talk about local politics, state politics, national or international politics. Today we're going to talk about something even more important because it's the start of baseball season. We're going to talk about the state of baseball, Mark.
And Paul, before we start that, do you have a disclaimer?
Well, I am a candidate for Marion County Superior Court Judge in the Republican primary. As a result of that, there are certain rules that apply to judicial candidates, and one is that you can't pledge or promise to take a certain position on an issue that could come before the court. So if the DH comes before the court, I cannot promise that I would strike it down, though I would certainly move in that direction.
Well, but Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis was commissioner of baseball in the 1920s. So there's a potential for you as a person in the judiciary, should you win election, to become a commissioner of baseball, and that would certainly be an improvement over Bud Selig.
I think it would. It would certainly be my dream job.
Our guests today are Pat McCarthy, who's former coach of both Zionsville and Pike High School's baseball teams. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you.
And also George Wilson, who's a token American League fan here today amongst three National League fans. He's a Cleveland Indians fan, which shows that he has questionable judgment in terms of baseball. But I'm a Cubs fan, and I want to note, I wore this here today, not to wear on the show, but just to show the state of baseball, and we're talking about the state of baseball. I can't wear this except for demonstrative purposes, and the demonstrative purpose is to say, well, I'm not allowed to wear something that's trademarked except to discuss it, and that's fair use. So there went the hat. That's about as much of a chance as my Cubs have this season. So let's get that out of the way. First segment we're going to talk about is, and this is just a question, is baseball culture dying in this country?
Baseball's in trouble. I really do. You can take a look at all of the statistics. They're getting a lot of people coming into the park. But when you take a look at the way that baseball is going, I think Bud Selig's not going the wrong way.
And you asked a question the other night that I thought was rather well phrased and rather on point. Why are we doing all this for the money when we're losing the fans?
And that's exactly the way I feel it's going. Everything is for the money. I believe Bud Selig replaced Fay Vincent at the behest of a couple owners who were into all the money.
And the way baseball, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will, the way baseball is structured now, other major sports have salary caps so that a team can only spend so much total in payroll. And that means that everybody is on more or less an even field. But baseball allows teams to pay a so-called luxury tax. That makes the big market teams like the New York Yankees primarily, but also the Boston Red Sox, Philadelphia Phillies, because their markets have more people and they make more money, they're able to afford all the players. So a small market team, for example, Pittsburgh Pirates, doesn't draw as many fans. They're not able to afford the players, and so a team like the Yankees isn't in the hunt
Well, and
every
once
year.
again, I mean, I think that the critical issue is not just the fact that they're in large markets and have the attendance figures, but you look at the Yes Network, the Yankees, essentially the Yankees network, that sells to cable channels all over the East Coast, and the bottom line is, you know, a Detroit, a Minneapolis, Cleveland, Pittsburgh can't compete because they can't possibly match those numbers. And when that's all thrown in, unless there's a common pot, as there is in football and the other major sports, it's a huge advantage. The media advantage is much larger than the attendance base.
But there is a common pot in terms of money that the major league owners share.
It's not revenue sharing though, and it does affect their payroll. You know, when I see a payroll of the Yankees at $200 million, in, you know, a team like Pittsburgh approaching maybe 70 million, there's a big difference.
Well, and just so people are aware of my views on this, I believe the New York Yankees are evil. I'm not talking about just kind of like one of those things where, well, there's some bad apples in the organization. The entire organization is evil.
Well, Chicago's a big metropolitan area. Why can't they do the same thing the Yankees are
Because
doing?
our management is incompetent.
Okay.
We've
But
had
they had a chance to pick you as general manager, and they did not jump on
That's a
it.
very good point. I applied for the job of general manager this past summer when the Cubs had dismissed their former general manager.
Jim Hendry.
And I offered my services. I said that I would emphasize the draft, farm league, pitching, defense, because I can hit a home run out of Wrigley Field with the wind blowing out. And I didn't even get a ding letter. I sent the same letter in '87 when Dallas Green was removed, and I got a ding letter back on letterhead that's in my office, but they didn't have the courtesy to tell me that they weren't going to hire me. You know, I didn't get a ding letter from the Vatican when I applied for Pope. That was and I think the requirements for Pope are probably less stringent than they are for the Cubs. I'm not sure. But talking about, because you only have a few teams that are able to compete effectively, then that means that people in the small markets aren't going to show up. I mean, the NFL has made everybody so even. They have such parity, because that's what Rozelle was aiming for, was parity.
Except for my Cleveland Browns.
Well, but they suffer from the same malady that my Cubs, and that is incompetence. But everybody seems to be pretty equal. Every team's got a decent shot at the season. And baseball, it does not. Teams are not equal, and so it affects attendance, it affects interest in the game.
But, you know, it's odd because as you say that, you look at pennant runs that, you know, the Brewers had a few years ago. Minnesota has regularly, and, you know, until last year, fielded a competitive team. Probably the best team in the American League, not on the East Coast, is going to be the Tigers this year. So small market teams somehow or another can compete. But I think they compete by being smarter, by using their farm system better, by, you know, developing a system better. The Yankees can buy a pennant. A few teams can buy a pennant. Most teams have to build a team that is competitive.
And when they reach that point where they are competitive, a team like the Yankees comes in and either buys their players on free agency, or they trade for them.
Yeah, it's hard for those teams to hold on to their players.
Yeah, Joey Votto, I think, is going to be the Reds are going to have trouble holding on to him after this year.
And I think that's a positive thing, because the Reds the last couple of years have screwed up our ability to get cheap tickets at Cincinnati. Because when they sucked for so many years, we'd go down there and get tickets and especially later in the season. But in terms of getting people interested, it's not just that the big market teams come in and are able to dominate, but also I don't see kids' involvement in baseball like it used to.
No.
I think part of the problem is the premier event, the World Series, and even the playoff games are played so late at night that kids can't stay out. Some of these games go on to 11, sometimes they go on to midnight.
And they are so worried about the East Coast, or the West Coast seeing the beginning of the game.
Right.
They're not worried about the East Coast seeing the end of the game. And with us being on the East Coast times, which we shouldn't be, but we are, it's hard to stay up to see those.
Yeah, because that's when we were out on the West Coast, '94. The Pacers were in the playoffs, and they were playing Atlanta. It was like 9 o'clock Eastern. It was the fourth quarter, and we're watching it at 6 o'clock, walking into this bar in San Francisco, and I thought that was great. But if you look at the starting times for some nighttime games in baseball, it's 10 o'clock East Coast time. So you're not even able to see the start of the game until 10 o'clock. And so kids aren't able to stay up. But also, I don't see the involvement of kids playing as much at Little League level in younger leagues like there used to be.
What I really miss is seeing the kids playing out on a corner in a vacant lot.
Absolutely.
You don't see that anymore. And I really believe parents, it's just you organize. There is no such thing as a pickup game. It's always going to be a parent-organized thing. And I think baseball is losing out on that a little. It's so much easier just to go to a basketball court with a basketball. To find the field, to find the people, that's a little different. And things have changed.
Right. And I think that builds skills, the fact of organizing a team and putting together and telling people the rules and everything. And now, like you said, things are parent driven now. People sit back and expect their parents to.
Well, and what's sad too is I think Major League Baseball is missing a tremendous opportunity in that there should be, I believe, from MLB's standpoint, a concerted effort to be involved in Little League, in building a system that gets kids back in love with the game of baseball. I mean, when I was a kid, that's what we did all summer long. We'd go out in the morning with a bat, a ball, our gloves, and whether it was 4-a-side, 5-a-side, or 7 or 8, we'd go out and we'd play games, and we would play, 2 or 3 in a given day and enjoy it. And kids are missing that opportunity. And again, I think the involvement of Major League Baseball would ensure them a fan base for years to come, but they seem to be missing the boat on that.
Well, if they were to do something also like, we used to play, we got 5-a-side where I live because we were out in the country. That was a big game. But we also would play home run derby or the
Flies and grounders.
Yeah, there were variations, so you're learning the skills related to baseball. But one thing I think also that Major League Baseball could do is like reserve sections at ballparks and give kids tickets, schools tickets.
Absolutely.
But one thing about baseball is it requires money because a ball glove is not cheap. And a bat costs money. A baseball is not very expensive, but for a lot of kids who don't have money, that's a big hurdle.
We used to tape and retake our balls to league specifications. That would last a summer.
Well, and I think when you look at the competition that baseball has with kids, you're looking at soccer in which all they need is that one ball.
Yeah.
Or there's basketball. This is Indiana, and so that's the first sport that anybody usually learns here. We're getting towards the end of our first segment. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Good.